the more you learn, the more you earn. So if you're open to just learning to evolve and grow and that kind of thing so that you can scale bigger, you will have, without a shadow of a doubt, the best ability to have not just financial freedom, but time freedom.
There's a lot of subcontracting going on too. So it's a different market. However, you still want the same clarity. Even if it's a contractor versus an employee, you still want the same clarity behind what you need them to do.
And I was playing small. And to me, that first time that I actually looked at, okay, this is the cost. So this is what we need to charge over the cost to make it worthwhile so that we can also pay ourselves. And I kind of Welcome to She Means Millions. We are going to talk today a little bit about the cost of staying small, because some of y'all be playing small and costing yourselves a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does cost.
Maybe they want to be small. I mean, maybe,
It's whether they're staying small for the right reasons or not. I think that the issue that I know that even I had was that I thought when I was smaller, I had more control. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is, the smaller you are, the least amount of control you have, because
it's true. You're
doing everything and you have part of the reason why I started my business, I don't know about the listeners or the two of you, but it was, for a certain amount of freedom, right? And when you are chief cook and bottle washer, you don't have a lot of freedom because you're doing everything all day long, all weekend long. And I think it's a misnomer. I think it's a myth. People think that if you go big, you lose control. And actually, that's when you gain the most control, is when you go big. Because number one, if you're going big, that tells me you're making more revenue. And if you're making more revenue, you don't just have money momentum. You have momentum money. You have money that you can invest in creating momentum and hiring people to do the things that A, you have no business doing, or B, you're just really not good at. And when you stay small, you're often doing all the things. So going big lets you really develop a team. Then you have to learn how to manage yourself so that you can lead others. Since you don't have anybody managing you and you're the CEO, you don't have a manager. So you have to now take on the role of managing yourself. So that you can lead others. And that's a different set of skills that you have to acquire. But, the more you learn, the more you earn. So if you're open to just learning to evolve and grow and that kind of thing so that you can scale bigger, you will have, without a shadow of a doubt, the best ability to have not just financial freedom, but time freedom, self-freedom, impact freedom, just all the things that I think freedom means different things to different people. But whatever that freedom means for you, when you go big, I know that you will have time for it, because what often is the biggest issue is you just don't have time when you stay small to do a lot of the things you wish you could do.
Yeah, I think it is. Absolutely. I agree with everything you said there, and I think it's also imperative that, as you always say, do the things only you can do. I remember when I hired my first employee. Do you remember this? Anne was her name.
That's right.
And I told her.
That's when you had the ad agency.
I had the advertising agency, and we had had a recording studio, and I needed a full-time assistant. I couldn't get out. It was that catch-22 where you're always running to get the new business. You're trying to find it, network, and all that kind of stuff, and then go back and do the business. So I went and caught it. Now I've got to do it. And that cycle will wear you out, and I remember when I brought on Ann and I gave her enough money. I think it was $10 an hour, something like that. And I said, I want you for 20 hours a week, Ann. She goes, okay.
That was for the first week.
And that lasted 1 week. She saved me so much time. I was able to jettison the work that I did not need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you do have to be willing to say, listen, I might have to take a pay cut here. I might have to cut back or something. Maybe I don't get paid.
Mm-hmm. Step back to take a leap forward.
It was a step back to take a leap forward at some, but just the fear.
It's what we call the pinch, right? Sometimes you have to feel the pinch before you can feel the benefits of the full release of it.
But I think, especially if people who are hiring for the first time, trying to decide on that. And in today's climate, there's a lot of subcontracting going on too. So it's a different market. However, you still want the same clarity, even if it's a contractor versus an employee. You still want the same clarity behind what you need them to do, that you're able to measure them on, and more than anything, it's to free you up. I say around here, one of the things that I use Michael Jackson, but it can be Taylor Swift. But I'll say, Sandra's our Taylor Swift. In other words, only she can do what she does, and everything else needs to evolve around and focus on how do we support you, so you can be your absolute best, because you're our Taylor Swift, But staying small, it is amazing when I think about the people who, just paralyze themselves staying in this space, and part of it, I do believe, is they're not getting out, and they're not, putting themselves in expansive rooms, but I really mean expansive thinking.
Well, I think, yes, when you're around other people who do charge with their worth, but I do believe that some of it might even be subconscious, or maybe it's just like that whole ignorance is bliss. I mean, I will never forget being in SOAR. When I had my first brand, Makeup Artists Unleashed, and we were doing workshops and going all over, and we were, flying to cities, renting cars, driving to cosmetology schools to sell workshops where then we had makeup kits and guest speakers and hotel costs and lunch costs and all of these costs. And I had never learned the process of job costing. And so for me, it wasn't just a matter of executing the workshop, but all of the things that went into marketing the workshop. And I realized that we were way undercharging. And so for me, stopping playing small was saying, no, we are actually worth way more, not just from this is what I believe we're worth, but this is actually what it's costing us to grow and to be able to deliver and continue to sustain and build a business that we can ultimately pay ourselves, pay our team, all of the things. And I think that, unless you've had somebody as an entrepreneur, if you don't have a reference point or a coach or somebody that's really breaking down for you the process. I had never heard of job costing before. I was in my 20s, and maybe that's common sense to people, but to me it wasn't. And I was playing small. And to me, that first time that I actually looked at, okay, this is the cost, so this is what we need to charge over the cost to make it worthwhile, so that we can also pay ourselves. And I kind of wanted to threw up a little bit the first time I pitched it at that new price. It was scary.
Knowing what it costs you to run an event, every single penny, capturing every single penny. So, and then you have to factor in your time. What is your time worth? So that needs to go into it as well. Then you've got your total cost. And then you want to ask yourself, so what do we want our profit to be? Is it 50% on top of that divided by the number of people that you're going to have in the room? And that's going to give you a figure. And now you have to ask yourself, will people pay that? And if not, what do I have to do to make it more valuable to them? And so what is the implications of that? And just really making sure that you're running your business profitably, not just by hard expenses, but all of the cost of your time and your energy, and eventually the opportunity cost of what's not getting done because you're running the event.
Yeah.
Right. So
what I found was, once I actually knew the number and I knew the cost of things and knew, what we wanted to profit afterwards, I was actually able to sell it really easily because I had so much more conviction.
Yeah.
So much more conviction. And this is so valuable what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I was able to really grow into that. But I played small for a long time just because I didn't know what I didn't know. And it wasn't until I invested in a coach to help me recognize, oh no, you're playing way too small.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really challenged me to grow. And I think a lot of women find themselves maybe in that situation where they're not really factoring in that maybe they're looking at their hard costs, but we're not valuing our time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, there's the old thing of, I don't want to work that hard. The people who, that are willing to put in the time to do what they have to do
Well, that's what
to
Mark
grow
Cuban
big.
said, right? When we interviewed him, I asked him, I don't know, I think this wasn't when the camera was on, but we were sitting, he was in my office, sitting on my couch and at the time. And I asked him, why do you think most small businesses don't make it? And I just was so struck by how clearly he responded without hesitation. He said, most people just don't want to work that hard. I do believe that, a lot of people want what they perceive that you have, but when they know how hard you've had to work to get it, a lot of times that becomes when people throw in the towel. But, you have to do something, you've never done, perhaps work the hardest you've ever had in order to really get access to things that you would never have otherwise, and then learn the lessons from that. And if you stay a learner, if you're a lifelong learner, and you're constantly doing what we call plan, do, review, we plan everything that we do, then we're in execute mode. Let's nail it, and then we stop and we review it. Where did we shine? Where did we create chaos behind the scenes that created a lot of churn and unnecessary work and overtime, and people were tired and not their best selves? What opportunities did we leave out on the table? Not just opportunities to make money, but maybe opportunities to blow your customers away, to really wow them, right? And then what were the threats, the things, the mistakes that you made that the customer actually saw, not the ones behind the scenes, but the ones that the customers actually saw. And that's part of your review on your plan, do, review. And I think that once you do that and you're committed to that and you get better and better and better, I'm just looking at what we just did. What was it yesterday? We had a 2-hour icon meeting for our conference coming up in August, and the entire team is on Zoom. We have everything on an Excel spreadsheet. I think there are roughly close to 600 line items to execute the conference. But look at what happened yesterday. It was the ultimate, remember all the things we said we wanted to do differently, because we did the review meeting. So it was so easy for me in my mind to say, not only do we have it documented, but it was very easy to say, oh, we want to do this differently. We want to do this differently. And we need to have this done, in April, and certainly we don't have to wait till July for that. Why don't we have it by the end of May? And starting to shift so that as we get closer and closer and closer, it's not quite so burdensome.
Yeah, heavy.
Yeah, it's a really heavy lift to get off the ground, right?
So what does playing small look like in your mind? Because I think about it. I'll just give you a reference point from here. So I think about some things we did as we were growing the conference, growing the brand, growing the image. And, we were careful not to outrun our supply line. Do you know what I mean when I say that? The supply of cash.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you don't want to outrun your supply line, but also we knew that we wanted to project a bigger image. I can honestly say the one thing that eWomen Network has definitely done is it's projected, especially early on, a bigger image than it actually was. The footprint that we created in our marketing and branding and positioning of who we were to step into that,
Yeah. Yeah, I think playing small, there's, I think, a few ways women play small. The first one that I think is the biggest one is this whole undercharging and then over-delivering. And they almost do that. I feel like women do that almost intentionally, like maybe because they're afraid to ask for what they're worth or because they want to over-impress people. But to me, this whole disconnect, you're almost setting your own bar too low when you undercharge and over-deliver. You're undercharging and you're basically saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do, but I'm going to deliver up here. Why don't you just do what you say you're going to do and charge what you're worth?
Right.
You know what I mean? I think women oftentimes are maybe afraid that they're going to lose the sale altogether by just putting their stake in the ground and saying, this is what I'm worth and this is what I can do for you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a huge way that women play small. And I also think that women on the other side of that, it kind of dovetails to charging what you're worth, is they shrink themselves in rooms. It's almost like an insecurity type of a thing. And I don't know if it goes back to just programming and how women were raised to be, but I feel like I'm seeing more and more women start to be more unapologetic and taking up space. But there certainly are a lot of women who I witness, even with contractor relationships and talking to women, that way undercharge. And it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you to charge me more, but you should really consider raising your prices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, a real simple way to understand if you're playing small is just take whatever your revenue is for 2025 and divide that by your, client price or your hourly, however you measure. And because some people measure by the hour and some people measure by the day and some people measure by the program. But whatever that is, look at the number of people that you've served. And if you're thinking that that number is way too low, then you're playing too small. It's really that simple. For me, it's about impact, measuring impact. And measuring impact to me is equated to the number of customers that we take on. When I look at the number of CEO Plus members that, Briana, you and I get to coach every Monday, like clockwork for 30 minutes, because how you start your week defines your week. And it's just as fulfilling for me as it is for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the people that are, on the calls. But the point of the matter is, I want people to understand that, you started your business to make an impact. And you should have a goal of the number of people that you want to impact. And if you could take whatever it is that you are making and divide that by your daily rate, your hourly rate, or whatever it is, and equate that to the number of customers that you've served, and you're saying, I should have a bigger impact in the world. I should be helping more people, or there are a lot more people that would benefit from the products or services that I offer, then you're playing too small. You're playing too small. And I think it could be fear. And I think fear is a legitimate thing. My mom used to say, when I was growing up, my mother used to say, when I would be afraid of something or really nervous about something, my mother, and I think it's based on a fable. She didn't know the fable, but I'm sure it is something. She used to say there are two wolves that live in your mind, and they're barking. They're both barking as loud as they can. And one of them is hope and faith, and the other one is darkness and despair. And she said, which wolf, Sandra, is going to win? Mm. And which always made me answer, which she taught me was the answer, the one you feed, right? And so faith and fear. And the interesting thing is it took me a long time to realize they're both things you can't see. You can't see faith. You can't see fear. You fundamentally have to believe in one of them or the other. And the one that wins is the one you feed. And I often say, if you think it's too expensive to go big, look at what it's costing you to stay small.
Do you feel like you're drowning in your business? Like you're doing everything and something has to give, but you're afraid it might be you? What if I told you there's a network of over 500,000 women entrepreneurs, all dedicated to supporting each other? A network of women helping women. I'm Sandra Yancey, founder of eWomen Network, and I'm inviting you to join us and become a member. eWomenNetwork.com. We can't wait to meet you.
So powerful when you confront bigness, when you confront head on what's in front of you, to go to those places that whether you dream about them or you hope for. I don't like to use the word level, so I always have to insert a different word because I don't like saying next level. I've heard that so much. Right. That's my thing.
It's your anti-word.
Yes, my anti-word. Next level. Mm-hmm. But as you're talking, it makes me think about scary moments of our own. Is there a scary moment that in your 26-year eWomen Network
I have many scary moments.
That stands out.
Many. The first time we ever did an event at a hotel, and I had to sign the contract, and I had to guarantee the rooms, and I had to guarantee the food and beverage, and I had a ballroom, and I had to get a production company, and all these bills started coming in, and it scared the bejeebies out of me. But I think the big one was the hotel. And, I remember signing that contract at like 4:30 in the afternoon and leaving the office early and heading to have me a tangertini. I was like, felt like such a huge risk for something a year in advance, just a true commitment. Now I needed to figure out what was I going to do to inspire people to want to come to the conference and buy a ticket and all the things. That scared me. When we first moved into this building, which is interesting because we're 26 years old, and I think we were not quite 2 years into eWomen Network when we realized we had little kids at home. And for me, and I know for other people, it's just the opposite, but for me, I lost boundaries at home. I lost the boundary between home and work. when I was working from my home, I would be like, you're at school, I'm working, let me do a little laundry. Distraction, run down, put the laundry, sort it out, put it in, going back up. Oh, it's done. Let me go down. And some things have to be hung. Some things have to be, put in the dryer, and some things have to be dried lightly. And then I want to hang them up, so they don't get over dry and they don't shrink. And so I'm thinking about all that while I'm now running back up into my office doing things.
So much context switching.
So much like multitasking, so many things. And okay, so you're coming home from school in the next half an hour. Let me get this stuff out to thaw for dinner.
Yeah.
And then let me start putting dinner together. And just, it was madness. Before I knew it, I would take things from my office and they'd be on the countertops, and they'd be on, the dining table, and all my stuff was everywhere. And I started to go mad when I just lost my sense of boundaries. And that's when we moved here to this building, and we rented, we subleased. We were too afraid to sign on the dotted line with a lease in our name. So we sublet from Mutual of Omaha.
Mutual of Omaha.
And they actually had 4 offices. They were downsizing, and they were like, you have 4 offices and they have desks in them. We'll take it. And then we eventually grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And here we are. We've, the longest in this building.
But
now we're taking over a floor.
Yeah, I'll tell you what stands out for me. It stands out to me, and you may be facing this same situation in your life, where you've got to make some decisions about, how you want to be perceived, but getting out of small thinking. All right. It was that first hotel. I mean, we booked the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas.
Which was a 5-star at the time,
26
right?
years ago.
Yeah.
5-star hotel, luxury hotel. Now, here was the point. The point was, one, we wanted to be able to say, this is where our event's going to be.
Make a
and people
statement.
go, hey, make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
Could we afford it? No. I mean,
Yeah.
I swear to you, I was like the Wizard of Oz.
You were the corner.
In the little corner
sound system.
with a little sound system, working the sound system and all that. And, you were introducing people because you weren't speaking.
Well, not only that, but I was driving a Volvo, and I found out that Tom Thumbs, which is our version of it's a grocery store chain here. I found out that they would donate flowers.
Yeah,
once a month. And
You guys had so much audacity. Like, when I hear this story, I just think, man, they had the nerve to really go there and bet on themselves. And I'm just so curious, is that something, it's almost like you just had to believe in yourself and what you could do so much to have the audacity to make such a huge, the Adolphus 26, that was a new hotel, a hot new hotel. And then to just pull it off. I'm just curious, do you feel like that is a skill that you're just born with?
no, you know what I've learned?
I don't think you're born with it.
I don't know. What it taught me was that I have never died from what I've tried.
Yeah. Yeah. I have. Actually.
But,
My God, for 45 minutes, right?
I've died from what I've tried before. So,
goodness. All right. That I can ever say that again. I just got hot. I was freezing in here. That just brought on the heat.
No, but to your
I gotta
point.
recover. Give me a minute.
We'll give you a minute.
Okay.
No, it's the whole notion of playing big and not playing small. I mean, that is a great analogy with the wolves. Like, which one you feed? Like, which do you feed the smallness?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? At what point? I mean, honestly, my whole thing is a couple of records that, for whatever reason, it's the one Bette Midler sings it too. If that's all there is, if that's all there is, if that's all there is, my friend, then let's keep dancing, bring out the blues, and let's have a ball. You know what I mean? In other words, as you look at it, you look at the landscape and say, listen, you're not going to be able to go around twice. Okay, you get one shot at going around, right? Mm-hmm. And it's what you decide. Well, yeah. She got 2 shots, didn't she?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it'll never be the same.
The 1% are up there.
Yeah.
So most of us, the 99% of the rest of us.
But, it's the decisions you make about your life. Because it is, you do reach, all of us are going to come to terms with the moment of saying, I've wrung it out, and did I give it my best shot?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Right now, start that whole notion of starting new every day, like every day is day one. Mm-hmm. That's really how I feel about it. The fact that we've been in business for 26 years doesn't give us the right to do anything but saying we got 26 years of surviving. You know what I mean? Of working our way through things, of wanting a better situation, not only for ourselves, but for our members, for it, the people that we touch,
Yeah.
which that's a whole nother subject around, the giving aspects of what your business can do for you. You know what I mean? As you said, as you become more and more successful, the things that you can do to help the charities and things that
And
you
even
care about.
salaries. Like our team has homes and car payments, and it's because of this office. It's because of what we do here.
I quietly think about that a lot.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of my time sometimes when I'm here alone and I leave and I'm walking by everybody's office and I'm thinking, I pay their rent, I pay their electric bill, I pay their water bill, I pay their dog food,
The groceries. If we didn't pay them,
they'd be working somewhere else, of course. You know what I mean? But I do think sometimes it feels heavy. But more times than not, I feel a lot of pride around it.
mm-hmm.
And I don't need anybody to acknowledge it. It's just a self-awareness thing. Like, okay, I'm doing this, and I count the tiles. And I count the tiles everywhere I go. Don't you go into an office? Do you go to the office and look at the tiles?
No, I can't.
No, not particularly. No.
I do. When I'm in an office, I'm in my dentist's office. I just went to the dentist yesterday. I'm literally looking at the ceiling and counting the tiles and imagining, okay, so this building probably commands this amount per square foot. And so here's the square footage here. And this lobby, somebody is working. Somebody put their signature on a line to pay for what is probably a $1,500 lobby.
Oh, that's next level thinking.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You just took it to another level.
Yeah.
And then start looking at tiles. How many tiles are
And then you haven't done that
No.
downstairs? We're doing a massive remodel of the fourth floor in our building. We're moving in.
I just know what they're charging per square foot, and I know what they're charging us, but I haven't counted.
Yeah, but I just walked in and I can't help but look up and realize, and our studio is going to be close to twice, is it roughly
Yeah.
the size? And I think about the square footage of every. I can't help everywhere I go but notice that, because I've had to pay per square foot, and these are 24 inches, so there's 2 feet per. That's this. That's that much, and 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, and then I go this way, and sometimes I get out my calculator, and I like,
Wow.
somebody put it on the line, man.
Yeah.
And I never not think about somebody had to sign and guarantee personally, because in the very beginning they made us guarantee personal. Now we guarantee as a company. Of course, we've been here for 24 years too, but it's part of the price you pay. Right? I've had to go out and get a line of credit before, guarantee it personally. Nobody knows that. I don't walk around and go into every office. Hey, we're getting all this equipment because I got a loan and I paid for it. I signed for it personally. I don't walk into people's office and tell them that, but I know it. I feel it in my heart. You know what I mean? Yeah, I never not think about the fact when I see all these Amazon boxes come in. I know people order what they need. But I also always know I'm paying for that.
Yeah.
I'm generating the sales that pay for that. I never not think about it. I never look at the paper clips. Me, we're cleaning out, we're purging. I take things out and I go, oh my gosh, there's a lot of paper clips here. I can't help myself but flip through those paper clips and throw them on the desk and other people like, there's just paper clips, Sandra, just throw it all away. Well, when you've come from robbing Peter to mug Paul, when you've come from paying other people's salary and your own water bill gets canceled, you can't give your kids a bath. When you come, but you don't tell your team that in the very beginning, because you don't want them to be so panicked that then they leave because they think, and you're not taking a salary. You're getting a check, but you put your check in the drawer because you really can't afford to cash it, even though they cut it. The check, and you know what I mean? And you see everybody saying, hey, we're going out for lunch. Sandra, you want to join us? And you can't go, but you provided them the paycheck for them to go. Those are humbling experiences, and I've never forgotten them. It's always a little part of me inside.
I hate that. Those times I haven't had this happen in a long time, but you pick up the phone. We're sorry. This number has been deactivated. Like, what?
Kim and I used to have a funny thing in the very beginning. They'd call to collect our, the minimum what's the minimum we have to pay to keep the lights on, kind of thing. And uh, Kim, your whole thing was you didn't fall out of the hat. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
We had this joke about we'd take all our bills, we'd put them on a little piece of paper, and we'd throw them in a hat. We'd shake the hat. Whatever fell out of the hat, we'd pay that bill that month.
Oh my God.
And our joke was, didn't fall out of the hat this month.
Wow.
But I look back on that, and those are good memories to have, because not only is it a measure about how far we've come, but it's also a measure of what we put on the line. And we did it while we had little kids, which felt even riskier.
Yeah.
And but we went for it, and I think it's important. What it does for me is I know the feeling when I meet people, and they're saying, basically, I can't pay my bills. I can't pay all my bills. I'm really struggling right now, and I know that feeling, and I know that sense of desperation, and it makes me want to help those people that much more.
Yeah.
Man, this episode here is going to have me like saying, well, I've been playing too small. I got to. I remember when we did the Glow project, the Glow movie.
Oh, yeah.
For if you don't know what the Glow project is, you can go to YouTube and put in Glow Project, GLOW, Glow, and
It was a movie.
and it's a movie, a documentary movie. And I remember when one of the ladies watched it because it was being played all over the country. This is right after The Secret came out, shortly
We
thereafter.
debuted in New York, and we'd rang the NASDAQ bell. I mean, it was a really big deal.
It was a really, really big deal. But I remember people telling me they'd watch the movie and they would feel like, man, I've got to do more. Like, I am not doing enough. You know what I mean? And that really wasn't the intention of the movie, but it inspired people. And this conversation, just having this, it's bringing up freshness to me around, listen, did you notice at the Platinum event we had this year, I couldn't believe everybody did this, but I said to the audience as I was getting started, I said, if not now, and then the entire room said, when?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was like taken off guard, man. Like I wasn't expecting the entire room to scream out, if not now.
Yeah, but that's when
when?
you found your tribe,
And-
Tim. The
but-
ones that get it.
But yeah,
They get it.
getting it.
They get it. Most people, it's why, when I was being interviewed to be the transformation expert on the syndicated television show, The Doctors, I remember being in the Paramount studios with my agent and being interviewed by two people, and one of the executive producers at the very end. The interview had gone longer than what it was scheduled for, so I felt like I was doing pretty good. And but I'll never forget the executive producer leaning into me and saying at the very end, "So Sandra, why you? Like, why should we pick you? Why? What is it about you that makes you so special to help people with their dreams?" And I remember looking over at Susan Haber, my agent, and looking back at him, and I said, "I'm so glad you're giving me the chance to clarify. I feel like I've miscommunicated. What I can tell you is that I don't help people with their dreams, because people give up on their dreams all the time. Probably the most valuable real estate in the world are cemeteries. All these dreams that people die with." I said, what I help them with, Joe, is callings. Like, what is your calling? The people I'm most attracted to are the people that get really clear as to why they're on the planet. And they're risking it all to do that. And it's a big risk to do that. And but you can't not do it. You can't give up on a calling, because it won't give up on you. You can try and distract yourself from it, but it's always like this low burning fever, like something's just not right, because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And the people that get in touch with that and say, I'm going to go all in, man, I have a soft spot in my heart for those people, because I'm one of them. And I know that there was so many other paths, easier paths that I could have taken than, what I chose to do. And eWomen Network. And glad I stayed with it. I'm glad I didn't know everything I was going to encounter, because I would have definitely passed. There's something to be said about ignorance is bliss. would have definitely passed. And so there's something to be said about just going for it and trusting that honestly, if you surround yourself with great people, and I'm so thankful that I have the two of you, like, you know,
But like you said, Sandra, choose your heart.
Yeah.
Choose all of it is hard. Choose your heart.
Yes.
And I'm telling you right now, this company is phenomenal. And it feels really good to be a part of creating it and working it and doing it for the years we've done it, to be able to say that and to feel good about it. When I think about who we touch and how who we touch others, and
the ripple effect,
the
right?
ripple, the lifting up that we do, I mean, this is a great place to be.
You know, Briana, because you've gone on tour with me and you've done your own tour dates too. So, you know, particularly this year, the tour's been a bit of a beatdown. We had the TSA, you know, not getting paid and, you know, all of that, the strike. And so the whole airport experience has been particularly challenging for sure. It's so non-glamorous, right? We're often in airport bathrooms changing our clothes and trying to make sure we don't put our feet on the floor in the airport bathroom
Yeah.
while we're getting out of our heels and getting into our tennis shoes and changing. But isn't it amazing when you walk into the room and you see all these amazing entrepreneurs? And I say to myself, you know, this is so worth it.
Yeah.
They are so worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They so fill my heart with just desire to help them. Just it's why I love the staff being at the conference, because they get to see just the impact that that we have and that we make on other people's lives.
Well, it's every day. It's
Yeah. Every day, for
every
sure.
single day. Because
Yeah.
you know what, Sandra, one of the things that fills me up the most is the majority, overwhelmingly, I would characterize it as 95% at least, would not have ever known each other if it wasn't for you on the network.
It's amazing.
And they're doing business together.
Yeah.
I mean, you
And
know,
they're doing life together. They're friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Vacationing, like to Italy and
Yeah.
doing things. Or when Trisha Turpinoff passed away. One
I
of
was
our
just thinking about that.
incredible members out of Colorado Springs. And, you know, her memorial service was, right before Christmas, a couple days before Christmas, the week before Christmas, something like that. And we had company coming in. I wasn't sure if I could make it. I was really worried about it. I certainly didn't want to commit to it. And then at the last minute, I just said, I'm going to buy a ticket in and out the same day within a matter of like 4 or 5 hours apart,
Yeah.
you know. And I walked into that memorial session. It had started by the time my plane landed and I got a car to get me over there. It had started, and I tried to sneak in through the back very discreetly and quietly. But I looked around and I saw all the people that were speaking and giving these amazing tributes to this most remarkable woman. And all the people that were around, and how many people saw me and said hello, and who I knew and who knew me. We recognized each other. And it wasn't until it was all over, I kind of held it together. It was all over. I got in the car and I called you and you said, how did it go? And I burst into tears. And I said to Kym at that particular time, I can still feel it right now. I said, we have created a community that extends way beyond even the network. All the people that were there, you know, in many instances, not in every, but in many instances, and met each other through eWomen Network, had grown to know her and love her and developed great relationships. And I thought to myself, you know, I mean, if I die on the way home, this was a life well lived to know that we've impacted people, you know, at this level. It was very powerful for me to be there to honor Trisha and then to see, you know, the relationships that she had as a result of so many that she met through eWomen Network. As you said, it wouldn't have happened.
wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have if you played small.
Amen.
If not now,
When? And there we go. So it's not just really about meaning business. You know, we really are looking for those women where she knows that she means
millions. Yeah.
millions.
We need to learn a little harmony there at the end. Millions. A little harmony on that. Millions.
Millions.
All right.